Hello and welcome back to the Gilded Heiresses. I'm Julie Montague and today we're heading to London. Because from dances to dinners to debutante balls, a London season in the Gilded Age was more than just a carousel of social spectacles. It was a meticulously choreographed battlefield where titles were flaunted, fortunes secured, and futures, quite literally, decided. Spanning roughly April to July each year, the season lured aristocrats, industrial magnates, and ambitious American heiresses alike into a glittering whirl of soirees, sporting events, and matchmaking opportunities. And as Britain's rigid class system began to brush shoulders with the nouveau riche of the United States, the London season became the perfect stage where old world titles and new world wealth could, let's say, negotiate their terms. So from the country manners of Britain's rural elite to the drawing rooms of Mayfair and the grand balls of Devonshire House, let's step inside this fascinating world together and meet some of the colorful characters who defined the era. For Britain's landed gentry, the London season marked a migration. Every spring, families would leave behind their sprawling country estates for the gleaming opulence of townhouses in Mayfair, Belgravia, and Kensington. Though the season is synonymous with lavish parties and glittering balls, it actually owed its very existence to Parliament. While the men rubbed elbows with politicians and powerful tycoons, entertainment was organized for their families, who flocked to the capital for the season, only to scarper back to the countryside around July, when the heat of summer reportedly made the stench of London completely unbearable. Back in the countryside, life was all about fox hunts and estate management. But the London season was vital. It was a chance to reconnect with influential circles, secure advantageous marriages for your offspring, and remain visible and significant in London's political world. In early April, steam trains would chug their way from country seats to the capital, carrying family members, servants, and frankly, outrageous amounts of luggage. Carriages rattled down Park Lane, trunks bulging with the latest Worth gowns from Paris, jewelry packed away in velvet-lined cases, and entire sets of household silver for a summer of relentless hosting. Townhouses were reopened, drawing rooms refreshed with new drapes, and guest lists pored over with painstaking care. And for those with fading fortunes or a surplus of unmarried daughters, the season was a calculated investment. A good marriage could save an estate for generations. And those glittering ballrooms weren't just for waltzing. They were hunting grounds, every bit as strategic as the Scottish moors come grouse season. For young aristocratic women, the London season officially began with their presentation at court. Under the stern gaze of Queen Victoria, that is, until her death in 1901, debutantes would curtsy deeply in gowns of regulation white satin, often trimmed with lace and pearls. Picture it: ostrich feathers bobbing in carefully styled hair, ivory fans trembling in gloved hands, and anxious mothers hissing last-minute instructions as their daughters prepared to make the curtsy. Deep, slow, holding eye contact with the Queen, and crucially, without toppling over from nerves or the sheer weight of those cumbersome gowns. A successful presentation meant a flurry of invitations to the season's most sought-after entertainments: garden parties, luncheons, and charity balls. But a misstep, or heaven forbid, a family scandal, and those invites could dry up overnight. And believe me, in London society, people noticed. At the very heart of the season were its grand entertainments. Night after night, London's great houses opened their doors for balls, dinners, and evenings of music and card games. Invitations were precious commodities. One of the most legendary events of the Gilded Age was the Devonshire House Ball of 1897, a spectacular celebration for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. Guests arrived in historical costumes. Queen Elizabeth I rubbed shoulders with Madame de Pompadour and Louis XIV, while the Duchess of Devonshire, dressed as Zenobia, the Queen of Palmyra, spared no expense on the decorations, with rooms transformed into scenes straight out of antiquity. Among the guests was the famous American beauty, Consuelo Vanderbilt, alongside her husband, the Duke of Marlborough. He arrived dressed as the French ambassador to the court of Catherine the Great in a 5,000 franc costume designed by the House of Worth. We're talking thick velvet, silver embroidery, pearls, diamonds, a gold and white damask waistcoat. But beneath all this splendor, the waltzes, the champagne, the costumes, the motive remained the same: matchmaking. Now, by this point, elite society had mostly abandoned the idea of traditional arranged marriages. Instead, these glittering balls became a sort of highly controlled singles mixer, a room filled exclusively with the most suitable partners in status and wealth, if not always in personality. A good match could elevate a family, replenish a dwindling fortune, or even salvage a social reputation. Mothers became tireless campaigners, sending their daughters to several parties a night on successive nights of the week. Daughters were paraded, heirs were appraised, and discreet inquiries made about titles, fortunes, and moral character. And as you can imagine, gossip spread like wildfire. A broken engagement, a scandalous flirtation, or a secret marriage could unravel a family's standing overnight. To put it plainly, image was everything. Of course, it wasn't all ballrooms and banquets. Daytime diversions played a vital role in the season too, offering ample opportunities for social display, fashion one-upmanship, and discreet flirtations, often away from the watchful eyes of the chaperones. The crown jewel of these was the royal ascot, a parade of top hats, morning coats, and for the ladies, headdresses that grew taller and more elaborate by the year. The royal enclosure was the holy grail, invitation only, policed by the Lord Chamberlain himself. If you were new, you needed to be the guest of a member or sponsored by two others who'd held their membership for at least 6 years. It was, quite simply, the ultimate marker of having arrived. Then there was the Henley Royal Regatta, all boat races, riverside picnics, and flirtations under parasols. And the Epsom Derby, which attracted a far rowdier crowd. Aristocrats, actresses, royals, and everyone in between mingling in a surprisingly democratic throng. By July, as Parliament rose and the royal family decamped to Osborne House or Balmoral, the season began its graceful decline. Those final weeks brought charity fetes, garden parties in Hyde Park, and farewell balls, before families returned to their estates for a summer of shooting, fishing, and more intimate gatherings. But make no mistake, the seeds planted during those whirlwind months would continue to grow. Matches made, flirtations kindled, reputations forged or destroyed. Looking back from today, it's easy to dismiss the London season of the Gilded Age as just an endless calendar of dinners and dances. But for those who lived it, it was a high-stakes game of survival and advancement, where marriage meant security, networking meant influence, and a well-timed rumor could shape a family's fate for generations. That's all for this episode of The Gilded Heiresses. I'm Julie Montague. Until next time, keep your feathers fluffed, your gloves spotless, and your fans at the ready.